The black Rolls-Royce sat idling outside Westminster Abbey. Rain streaked down the windows. Inside, Kate Middleton checked her watch for the third time in 2 minutes. She was late. Not fashionably late. Not royally late. Dangerously late. The service had started 15 minutes ago. The Queen's memorial service. Missing it wasn't just rude. It was unforgivable. Kate's driver, Michael, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. His eyes showed worry. "Ma'am, we should go. Traffic is clearing." But Kate shook her head. "We wait for Sophie," she texted. "Her car broke down 2 streets away. She'll be here in 3 minutes." Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, had always been kind to Kate. When everyone else at the palace whispered behind closed doors, Sophie smiled. She listened. She understood what it meant to marry into this family and feel like an outsider. Kate wouldn't leave her behind. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, with respect. Protocol says 3 minutes, Michael." He nodded. He'd driven for Kate for 7 years. He knew when to push and when to stay quiet. The rain fell harder now. Thunder rumbled somewhere distant. Kate watched the street, waiting for Sophie's car to appear. Then another car pulled up behind them. Kate recognized it immediately. The Bentley. Camilla's Bentley. Her stomach tightened. The rear window rolled down. Camilla's face appeared, pale and tight with irritation. She leaned forward, speaking to her own driver. But her eyes were locked on Kate's car. If you're enjoying the story, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful true story. Kate's phone buzzed. A message from Sophie, 1 minute away. "I see the Abbey." Relief washed over her. 1 more minute. That's all she needed. But then Camilla's driver stepped out of the Bentley. He walked quickly through the rain toward Michael's window. He knocked twice. Michael lowered the window halfway. "Her Majesty requests that you move forward immediately," the man said. His voice was clipped, formal. "You're blocking the route." Michael glanced back at Kate. Kate's heart pounded. She could see Camilla watching from her car. Cold, calculating. This wasn't about traffic. This was about power. "Tell Her Majesty we'll move in 1 moment," Kate said firmly. "We're waiting for the Duchess of Edinburgh." The driver nodded stiffly and returned to the Bentley. Kate saw Camilla's expression change. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She said something sharp to her driver. He nodded, got back in. The engine revved. Then Kate heard it. The Bentley's tires crunched forward on the wet pavement, but they weren't going around. They were coming closer. Michael's eyes went wide. "Ma'am, she's not stopping." Kate's breath caught. The Bentley was pulling up right alongside them, nearly scraping the Rolls-Royce's side. Camilla's window was still down. She stared directly at Kate now, her face unreadable. Then Camilla leaned forward and spoke to her driver. 2 words, Kate. Couldn't hear them through the glass in the rain. But she saw Camilla's lips move, and she saw what happened next. Camilla's driver got out again. This time, he walked straight to Michael's door and opened it. "Out," he said simply. Michael looked back at Kate, panic in his eyes. "Ma'am, what do I—" Before Kate could respond, Camilla's driver reached in, unlocked the car from the inside, and gestured sharply. "Her Majesty has ordered this vehicle to proceed immediately. If you won't drive, I will." Kate's pulse roared in her ears. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening, but it was. And in the rain, just beyond the gate, she saw a figure step forward from the shadows, tall, silent, unmoving. A royal guard. Kate stared at the guard through the rain-blurred windshield. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back. His red uniform was already soaked, but he didn't move, didn't blink. He was watching. Michael stumbled out of the driver's seat, his face pale. Camilla's driver slid in without hesitation. He adjusted the mirror, his movements calm and deliberate. Kate's voice cut through the tension. "Stop. You can't do this." The man didn't turn around. "I have my orders, ma'am." "I don't care about your orders. This is my car, my driver. And I am waiting for the Duchess of Edinburgh can find her own way inside." Camilla's voice came from behind. She'd stepped out of her Bentley, an umbrella already open above her head. She approached Kate's window, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. Kate rolled down her window. Rain misted her face. Camilla, this is unnecessary. Sophie will be here in seconds. Camilla's smile was thin and cold. The service has already begun, Catherine. We cannot have two members of the royal family arriving separately and late. It reflects poorly on all of us. Then wait with me. I've already waited long enough. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Kate felt her hands trembling. Not from fear. From anger. Pure, burning anger. This was cruelty, disguised as protocol. This was Camilla reminding Kate exactly where she stood in the new order. Charles was king now. Camilla was queen. And Kate. She was expected to obey. I'm not leaving, Sophie, Kate said quietly. Camilla's expression didn't change. Then you'll both arrive late, separately, and you'll both face the consequences. She turned to her driver, still sitting in Kate's car. Drive. The engine roared to life. Kate's heart stopped. Michael stepped forward, reaching for the door handle. But Camilla's personal security moved faster. He blocked Michael's path, his hand raised in warning. Ma'am, please, Michael called out to Kate, desperation cracking his voice. But the car was already moving. Slowly at first, then faster. Kate grabbed the door handle, ready to jump out. Protocol be damned. But then she saw him again, the guard. He'd moved. Not much. Just a step. But now he wasn't standing beside the gate. Anymore, he was standing directly in front of the car. The Rolls-Royce rolled forward, tires splashing through puddles. 10 feet away, then 5. Kate's breath caught. He's going to get hit. Camilla's driver didn't slow down. He leaned forward slightly, hands tight on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. The guard didn't move. 4 feet. 3 feet. Kate lurched forward. Stop the car. 2 feet, and then finally the brakes screeched. The car jerked to a halt. Inches from the guard's polished black boots. Silence. Even the rain seemed too quiet. The guard stood perfectly still. His face emotionless. His eyes, however, were locked on Kate through the windshield, and in them she saw something unexpected. Recognition, respect, resolve. Camilla's driver laid on the horn. The sound blared through the courtyard. Sharp and angry. The guard didn't flinch. Camilla appeared beside the car, fury twisting her features. Move now. The guard turned his head slowly to face her. He didn't salute, didn't bow. He simply looked at her. Ma'am, he said, his voice deep and steady, I cannot allow this vehicle to proceed. Camilla's face went white. You cannot excuse me? Security protocol, ma'am. The Princess of Wales has not given authorization to change drivers. Until she does, or until her original driver is reinstated, this vehicle is in violation. Kate's mind raced. That wasn't a real protocol. At least not one she'd ever heard of. But the guard said it with such conviction, such authority, that even Camilla hesitated. This is absurd, Camilla hissed. I am the queen. I am ordering you to. My orders come from the King's Guard, ma'am. Not from individual members of the family. The words were a knife. Camilla's mouth opened, then closed. Her cheeks flushed red. Around them, other guards had begun to notice. Other staff. This was becoming a scene. Kate saw her chance. She pushed open the door and stepped out into the rain. Her dress was soaked within seconds, but she didn't care. She walked past Camilla without a word and stopped in front of the guard. Thank you, she said quietly. The guard's eyes softened, just barely. Ma'am? Then, from down the street, headlights appeared. Sophie's car. It pulled up quickly, splashing water across the pavement. Sophie jumped out before it even fully stopped, her face flushed and apologetic. Kate, I'm so sorry. She stopped when she saw the scene. The guard. The 2 cars? Camilla standing rigid with fury. What's going on? Kate took Sophie's hand and squeezed it. Nothing. We're going in together. Right now. She turned back to Michael, who still stood frozen near the Bentley. Michael, your car, please. He rushed forward, relief flooding his face. Camilla's driver stepped out silently. its expression unreadable. Kate and Sophie climbed into the Rolls-Royce together as Michael started the engine. Kate looked out the window one last time. The guard was still standing there. Rain pouring down his face, he met her eyes, and he nodded. The memorial service was already halfway through when Kate and Sophie slipped into their seats. Every head in Westminster Abbey turned. The silence was deafening. Kate kept her chin up, her face calm. She'd learned long ago not to show weakness in front of these people. Sophie squeezed her hand once before letting go. They sat across the aisle. Camilla stared straight ahead. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were folded in her lap, knuckles white. Charles sat beside her, his face unreadable. If he knew what had happened outside, he gave no sign. The Archbishop continued speaking, his voice echoing through the ancient stone walls. Kate tried to focus on the words, on the reason they were all here. But her heart was still pounding. Her dress was still damp, and her mind kept replaying the same moment, the guard stepping in front of the car, risking everything for her. Why? After the service ended, Kate followed the procession out slowly. Protocol dictated where everyone walked, who spoke to whom, how long they stayed. It was a choreographed dance she'd performed 100 times. But today, everything felt different. As she stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was still gray, but thin streams of sunlight broke through the clouds. Photographers lined the barriers, cameras clicking like insects. Kate smiled politely, waved once, then turned toward her car. That's when she saw him, the guard. He was back at his post by the gate, standing at attention. His uniform had been changed. Someone must have brought him a dry one, but his face was the same, calm, steady. Strong. Kate wanted to walk over, to thank him properly, to ask him why he'd done it, but she couldn't. Not here. Not with hundreds of eyes watching. So instead she caught his gaze for just a moment. She smiled, a real smile, warm and grateful, and he smiled back. It was barely there. A tiny shift at the corner of his mouth. But it was enough. Then someone called her name, Catherine. Camilla stood a few feet away, her expression carved from ice. A word, Camilla said. It wasn't a request. Kate glanced at Sophie, who gave her a worried look. But Kate nodded. She followed Camilla away from the crowd, toward a quiet corner of the courtyard. When they were alone, Camilla turned on her. That was unacceptable. Kate met her eyes. I agree. What you did was completely unacceptable. Camilla's face flushed. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed the crown. You made a scene in front of staff, security, and God knows who else was watching. I made a scene. Kate's voice stayed calm, but fire burned underneath. You tried to steal my car? You ordered my driver removed. You tried to force me to leave Sophie behind. Was trying to prevent exactly what happened too? Senior royals arriving late and disrupting the service.
Oh, Ben.
You should have waited with me. Camilla stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. You need to understand something, Catherine. Things have changed. Charles is king. I am queen. And you. She paused, her eyes cold. You are no longer the future. William is. And until Charles is gone, you follow my lead. The words hit like a slap. Kate felt her chest tighten. For years, she'd bitten her tongue. She'd smiled through the snide comments, the power plays, the subtle reminders that she didn't have royal blood. She'd stayed silent because that's what she'd been taught to do, but not today. With respect, ma'am, Kate said softly, I don't follow your lead. I walk beside you, as an equal. And if you ever try something like that again, I won't be silent about it. Camilla's eyes widened. For a moment, she looked genuinely shocked. No one spoke to her like this. Not anymore. You're making a mistake, Camilla said finally. No, Kate replied. I'm setting a boundary. She turned and walked away before Camilla could respond. Her legs felt weak. Her hands trembled. But she kept walking, head high, shoulders back. When she reached her car, Michael was waiting. His face brightened when he saw her. Home, ma'am? He asked gently. Kate nodded. Please. As they drove away, she looked back one last time. The guard was still there, watching, and Kate knew somehow that this wasn't over. 3 days later, Kate was in her office at Kensington Palace when the envelope arrived. It was unmarked. No return address. Just her name written in careful, precise handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single piece of paper. A letter, Your Royal Highness. I hope this reaches you discreetly. I am writing to explain my actions at Westminster Abbey. I acted on instinct, and I realize I may have overstepped my position. However, I believe you should know the truth. I was ordered that morning to stand down, if any situation arose involving your vehicle. The order came from someone within the palace. I was told not to interfere. No matter what happened, I could not follow that order. My duty is to protect members of the royal family. All members, without bias, without politics, and what I witnessed that day was not protection. It was something else. I don't expect a response. I don't seek recognition. I simply wanted you to know that there are still those of us who believe in honor, in duty, in doing what is right, even when it costs us respectfully. Guardsman James Hartley. Kate read the letter 3 times. Her hands shook. Someone had ordered him to stand down. Someone wanted Camilla to succeed. Someone wanted Kate humiliated. And now, this guard, this man who'd risked his career, maybe even his safety was in danger, because he'd chosen her. Kate sat at her desk, the letter still in her hands. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Kensington Palace. She felt cold. Someone had tried to set her up. Someone inside the palace. She thought about the guard's words. I was ordered to stand down? Who had that kind of authority? Who would benefit from seeing Kate humiliated in front of the entire royal household? The answer made her stomach turn, but she needed proof. Kate pulled out her phone and sent a message to Sophie. Can you come over? Need to talk. Urgent. The reply came within seconds. On my way. While she waited, Kate walked to the window. Below, in the courtyard, life moved on as normal. Staff came and went. Tourists gathered outside the gates, taking photos. Everything looked peaceful, but underneath something was rotting. She'd felt it for years. The whispers. The cold shoulders. The way certain people at the palace looked at her like she was temporary. Like she didn't belong. Camilla had never been cruel. Exactly. Just dismissive, as if Kate was a pretty decoration. Useful for photos and public appearances. But not someone to be taken seriously. But this was different. This was sabotage. 20 minutes later, Sophie arrived. She swept into Kate's office, her face already worried. What happened? Sophie asked, closing the door behind her. Kate handed her the letter without a word. Sophie read it quickly. Her face went pale. Oh my God. I need to know who gave that order, Kate said. And I need to know if Guardsman Hartley is safe. As Sophie looked up. You think they'll retaliate against him? I think he embarrassed someone very powerful. And powerful people don't forget. Sophie set the letter down carefully. Kate, if you start digging into this, you're declaring war. You know that, right? Kate nodded slowly. I know. Camilla has Charles's ear. She has influence over staff, over security, over everything. If she finds out you're investigating, I don't care. The words came out stronger than Kate expected. She took a breath and continued. For 13 years, I've played by the rules. I've smiled when I wanted to scream. I've stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I've let people treat me like I'm less than them because I wasn't born into this. Her voice cracked slightly. But I won't let someone hurt a decent man just because he did the right thing. I won't. Sophie studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. Good, because you're going to need help. And I know exactly where to start. 2 hours later, Kate and Sophie sat in a small cafe in South Kensington. It was far enough from the palace to avoid attention, but close enough to get back quickly if needed. Across from them sat a woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and graying. Hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her name was Margaret Chen, and she'd worked in palace administration for 30 years before retiring last month. Sophie had called in a favor. Margaret stirred her tea slowly, her expression unreadable. You want to know who's moving pieces behind the scenes? Kate nodded. Someone gave an order to stand down during the incident at Westminster. I need to know who. Margaret was quiet for a moment. You understand that if I tell you this, I'm burning bridges I've spent decades building. Understand, Kate said quietly. And I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Margaret took a sip of tea. There's a group within the palace. Nothing official, just people who share certain views. About tradition. About bloodlines. About who really belongs in the family. Kate's chest tightened. Camilla? She's not the leader, but she's certainly a member. So is her private secretary, Donald Winters. And several key staff members who've been there since Charles was Prince of Wales. Sophie leaned forward. What do they want? Margaret's eyes darkened. They want to protect Charles's reign. And they see William and Kate as a threat. A threat. Kate's voice rose slightly. We've done nothing but support. You're more popular, Margaret interrupted gently. The public loves you. They love William. When people think of the future of the monarchy, they think of you too. Not Charles. Not Camilla. Kate sat back stunned. So they want to undermine us. Not just undermine. They want to ensure that when history remembers this era, it remembers Charles as the strong king, not as the placeholder before William. Margaret set down her cup. The incident at Westminster was a test. They wanted to see if they could control you, break you down a little, remind you of your place. But the guard interfered, Sophie said. Margaret nodded. And now they'll want to make an example of him. Kate's blood ran cold. What kind of example? Dismissal, most likely. They'll find some minor infraction, some rule he broke, and they'll remove him quietly. When? Kate asked urgently. Margaret checked her watch. If I had to guess, tomorrow morning. There's a review board meeting at 9. If Hartley's name is on the agenda, that's when they'll move. Kate stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Then we have until tomorrow morning. Sophie stood too. What are you thinking? Kate's mind raced. She couldn't go to Charles Heat's side with Camilla. She couldn't go to the press that would make everything worse. She needed something else. Something that couldn't be ignored or buried. Then it hit her. The Queen's trust, Kate said suddenly. Sophie frowned. The charity? It's not just a charity. It's a foundation that oversees welfare for palace staff and guards. The late Queen set it up specifically to protect people who work for the family. Kate grabbed her coat. If we can file a formal complaint through the trust, claiming that Guardsman Hartley is being unfairly targeted, they have to investigate. Margaret raised an eyebrow. That's clever. The trust operates independently. Even Camilla can't touch them. But we need evidence, Sophie said. We need something that proves he's being targeted. Kate thought hard. Then she remembered something. Michael, my driver. He saw everything. He heard Camilla's driver threaten him. He can testify. Will he? Margaret asked carefully. That's risking his job too. Kate met her eyes. He will, because he's a good man. Just like Guardsman Hartley. Sophie grabbed her purse. Then let's go. As they left the cafe, Kate felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, but also fear. Because she knew that once they filed that complaint, there was no going back. The war Sophie had warned about. It was about to begin. That night, Kate barely slept. She lay in bed at Kensington Palace, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. What if Michael refused to testify? What if the trust dismissed the complaint? What if Camilla found out before they could file it? Beside her, William slept peacefully. She hadn't told him yet. She would. But first, she needed to make sure this had a chance of working. At 6 in the morning, Kate gave up on sleep. She got up, got dressed, and went downstairs to her office. Michael was already waiting outside her door. His face was drawn, tired, but his eyes were clear. Determined, ma'am, he said quietly. Sophie told me what you need. I'll do it. Kate felt relief flood through her. Michael, you understand what this means? They could fire you. They could make sure you never work in royal service again. Michael straightened his shoulders. I've driven for this family for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things. Good things. Bad things. Things that made me proud and things that made me ashamed. He met her eyes. What they tried to do to you and what they're trying to do to that guard, that's not what this family should be. So yes, ma'am. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Kate stepped forward and did something she'd never done before. She hugged him. Michael stiffened in surprise, then relaxed. When they pulled apart, his eyes were wet. "Thank you," Kate whispered. "No, ma'am," Michael said softly. "Thank you for being brave enough to fight back." By 7:30, Kate, Sophie, and Michael were in the offices of the Queen's Trust. The building was small, tucked away on a quiet street in Westminster. Most people didn't even know it existed, but it was powerful. The woman who greeted them was named Patricia Ashford. She was in her 60s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She'd worked directly for Queen Elizabeth for over 20 years before taking over the trust. "Princess Catherine," Patricia said, shaking Kate's hand firmly. "This is unexpected. How can I help you?" Kate handed her a folder. Inside were copies of Guardsman Hartley's letter, Michael's written statement, and a timeline of events from Westminster Abbey. Patricia read everything slowly. Her expression darkened with each page. When she finished, she set the folder down and looked at Kate. "This is serious." "Oh no. If what you're saying is true, someone in palace administration deliberately endangered a member of the royal family and is now attempting to punish the guard who protected you. That's exactly what happened." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "You realize that filing this complaint will create complications. There will be an investigation. People will be questioned, and not everyone will be happy about it." Kate nodded. "I understand. But that man put himself between a car and me. He risked everything. I won't let him be destroyed for doing the right thing." Patricia studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. "Queen Elizabeth always said you had steel in your spine. I see she was right." She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Robert, it's Patricia. I need an emergency review board meeting. Today, yes. I know it's short notice." "No, it can't wait. Because we have evidence of administrative misconduct and I won't let it sit on my desk for a week while someone gets sacked. Clear your schedule." 10 o'clock, good. She hung up and looked at Kate. "It's done. The board will hear your complaint this morning. I'll personally ensure that Guardsman Hartley is not dismissed until after the investigation concludes." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Patricia said. "This is just the beginning, and the people you're going up against won't go down quietly." At 9:45, Kate received a phone call. It was from Charles. Her heart sank. Someone had already told him, she answered. "Hello?" "Catherine." Charles's voice was tight, controlled. "I've just been informed that you filed a complaint with the Queen's Trust against palace administration." "Yes, I did. Without consulting me." Kate took a breath. "With respect, sir, this was about protecting someone who was being unfairly targeted. I didn't think I needed permission to do that." It was a long silence. Then Charles spoke again, his voice colder. "You've put me in a very difficult position. I'm sorry you feel that way. Camilla is upset. I imagine she is." Another pause. Kate could almost hear him choosing his words carefully. "You need to understand that there are larger forces at play here. Forces that you may not fully comprehend. The stability of the crown depends on unity, on trust. And what you've done today has fractured that." Kate felt anger rising in her chest. "What I've done? Someone ordered a guard to stand down so your wife could humiliate me. Someone tried to force me out of my own car. And when a good man protected me, they decided to ruin his career. That's what fractured trust." "That's not—" Charles stopped himself. "The situation was more complicated than you realize." "Then explain it to me." Silence. Kate pressed on. "Or is it that you can't explain it? Because you know what happened was wrong, but you're too afraid to stand up to the people who did it." "Catherine, you're speaking out of turn." "No," Kate said firmly. "I'm speaking the truth. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you should ask yourself why." She hung up before he could respond. Her hands were shaking. She'd just hung up on the king, her father-in-law, the man who could make her life a living hell if he wanted to. But she didn't regret it. Sophie, who'd been sitting quietly nearby, let out a low whistle. "You just declared war." Kate looked at her. "I know." "Good," Sophie said with a fierce smile. "Because you're not alone in this fight." At exactly 10 o'clock, the review board convened. Kate wasn't allowed in the room. Neither was Sophie or Michael. They had to wait outside, while Patricia and the board members, 5 senior figures from various aspects of palace operations, reviewed the evidence. The minutes crawled by. Kate paced the hallway. Her mind wouldn't stop racing. What if they sided with Camilla? What if they buried the whole thing? What if the door opened? Patricia stepped out. Her face was neutral, giving nothing away. "Princess Catherine," she said formally. "The board has reached a decision." Kate held her breath. "Guardsman James Hartley will not be dismissed. In fact, he's being commended for his actions. Additionally, the board has launched a full investigation into the orders given that day at Westminster Abbey. Several members of palace administration will be questioned." Kate felt her knees go weak. "And Camilla?" Patricia's expression hardened slightly. "The Queen Consort has been informed that any future attempts to interfere with the safety or dignity of other royal family members will be met with formal sanctions." "She's not pleased, I imagine not." Patricia stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You made powerful enemies today." "Be careful," Kate nodded.
"I will."
"But I'd rather have powerful enemies than live as a coward." Patricia smiled. "Elizabeth would have loved you." As Kate left the building, she felt lighter than she had in years. She'd won, not just for Guardsman Hartley. For herself, she'd stood up. She'd fought back, and she'd won. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Because the powerful never forget, and they never forgive. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence from Charles and Camilla. 3 weeks of tense palace meetings where Kate was excluded. 3 weeks of staff members looking at her differently, some with admiration, others with fear. The investigation was ongoing, but Patricia had assured Kate that Guardsman Hartley was safe. He'd been quietly transferred to a different post, away from the main palace, where he could continue his work without interference. Kate had sent him a thank you note through Patricia. She never received a response, but she didn't expect one. Some acts of courage don't need
acknowledgement.
But the cost of her victory was becoming clear. Invitations to private family events stopped coming. Her ideas at foundation meetings were politely ignored. And worst of all, William was caught in the middle. He supported her completely. He'd been furious when she finally told him everything. But he was also Charles's son, and Charles was making it known that Kate's actions had damaged family unity.
William
tried to mediate. He tried to talk to his father, but Charles wouldn't budge. "She needs to apologize," Charles had said. To Camilla, publicly. William had refused. "She has nothing to apologize for." So the stalemate continued. Kate tried not to let it affect her work. She threw herself into her charity projects, her public appearances, her duties. But at night, alone in her thoughts, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Not in protecting Guardsman Hartley. She'd never regret that, but in underestimating how ruthless the palace could be. Then on a cold Thursday morning, everything changed. Kate was reading through briefing papers in her office when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." Kate frowned. "Who is it?" "He says his name is James Hartley." Kate's heart skipped. She stood immediately. "Send him in." A moment later, Guardsman Hartley entered. He was in civilian clothes, dark trousers, a simple jacket. Without his uniform, he looked younger. More vulnerable, he stopped a few feet from her desk and stood at attention. "Old habits hard to break, Your Royal Highness," he said formally. "Thank you for seeing me." Kate gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." "You don't need to be so formal." He hesitated, then sat. His hands were clasped tightly in his lap. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "For what you did, For protecting me when you didn't have to. What? You protected me first. I just made sure you didn't pay the price for it. Still, not many people would have taken that risk. Especially not against. He trailed off, not finishing the sentence. Against the queen consort? Kate finished for him. He nodded. Kate leaned forward. Can I ask you something? Why did you do it? You knew the order was to stand down. You knew you could lose your position. So why did you step in front of that car? Guardsman Hartley was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. My daughter's 8 years old. Her name is Lily, and she loves you. Kate blinked in surprise. She has posters of you on her wall, he continued. She dresses up like you for school events. When she grows up, she wants to be just like Princess Kate, strong and kind and brave. His eyes met hers. That morning when I got my orders, I thought about Lily. I thought about what I'd have to tell her if I just stood there and let something happen to you. If I let someone hurt you just because I was following orders. His voice cracked, and I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't look my daughter in the eye and tell her that I didn't protect someone she admired. Someone who represents everything good she thinks the world can be. Kate felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to stop them. So I stepped in front of that car, Guardsman Hartley said. Not because of duty, not because of protocol, but because my daughter needed to know that her father would do the right thing. Even when it was hard, Kate couldn't speak. She stood and walked around the desk. Guardsman Hartley stood too, uncertain, and then Kate did something that would later be photographed and shared around the world. She hugged him, not a formal, royal hug, a real one. The kind you give someone who changed your life. Thank you, she whispered. For being the kind of man your daughter already thinks you are. When they pulled apart, both were crying. There's something else, Guardsman Hartley said, wiping his eyes. Something you should know? Kate waited. Investigation Patricia launched. It's uncovered more than just the incident at Westminster. They've found evidence of other situations, times when orders were given to undermine you, to make you look bad, to create problems. Kate's chest tightened. How many times? At least a dozen in the past 2 years. Small things mostly. Wrong schedules. Missing briefing papers. Security delays. Things that would make you seem incompetent or difficult. Kate sat back down slowly. She'd thought she was paranoid. She'd thought she was imagining the obstacles that kept appearing in her path. But she hadn't been imagining anything. It had all been deliberate. Who ordered it? She asked. That's still under investigation? But the trail leads back to the same group Margaret told you about, the one trying to protect Charles's legacy by diminishing yours. Kate felt something harden inside her, not anger. Something colder, clearer, resolve. What will happen to them? She asked. Patricia is pushing for dismissals, but it's complicated. Some of them have been with the family for decades. And Charles. He hesitated. Charles is protecting them. Kate nodded slowly. She'd expected that. But here's the thing, Guardsman Hartley said. The investigation is official now. It's on record. And the Queen's Trust reports directly to Parliament, which means if the palace tries to bury this, it becomes a constitutional issue. Kate looked up sharply. Are you saying? I'm saying you have leverage now. Real leverage. The kind that can't be ignored or swept away. For the first time in weeks, Kate smiled. That evening, Kate sat down with William and told him everything. He listened quietly, his jaw tightening with each new revelation. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. Then he took her hand. What do you want to do? Kate thought about Lily, the 8-year-old girl with posters on her wall. She thought about all the other girls watching, waiting to see if she would fight or fold. I want to make sure this never happens again, Kate said. Not to me. Not to anyone else who marries into this family. I want real protections. Real accountability. William nodded. Then that's what we'll do. Together. Your father won't like it. I don't care. William's voice was firm. He's been king for 3 years. I'll be king for hopefully 40. And when I am, I want the monarchy to be something people can believe in. Something good. He squeezed her hand. You showed me how to fight for that. Now let me stand beside you. Kate felt tears well up again. But this time, they were tears of gratitude. She wasn't alone. She never had been. 6 months later, the palace announced sweeping reforms to royal household operations, new protections for staff, independent oversight committees, transparent complaint processes. The press called it the Windsor reforms. But inside the palace, everyone knew the truth. They were Kate's reforms, won with courage, with loyalty, with the help of a guard who'd stood in front of a car, and with the support of a husband who'd chosen to stand beside his wife instead of behind his father. Camilla never apologized. Charles maintained his distance. The people who'd tried to undermine Kate quietly left royal service, one by one. But Kate didn't need their apologies. She had something better. She had proven, to herself and to the world, that she belonged. Not because of her title, not because she'd married a prince, but because when the moment came to stand up or back down, she stood up, and in doing so, she'd changed everything. Years later, when Guardsman James Hartley's daughter Lily was graduating from university, she received an unexpected letter. It was from the Princess of Wales. Inside was a photograph of the moment outside Westminster Abbey when her father had stepped in front of the car, and beneath it, a note in Kate's own handwriting. Your father is a hero. Not because he wore a uniform, but because he chose courage over comfort, just like you will. The world needs more people like him. More people like you. Thank you for sharing him with us. With love and gratitude, Catherine. Lily framed that letter, and when she told people about it, she always ended the story the same way. My dad stood in front of a car for what was right, and the princess made sure the world knew it mattered. Because in the end, that's what courage does. It inspires more courage, and it changes everything.